And it's supposed to be coming tonight.
Was it a kid?
No, no, it was somebody else. You know,
Go back to the full time. Things are well. I'm just in the middle of doing a review of the Brunswick has also got into and I've been learned by the circular materials but of the transition. Yeah, it's been interesting. Because I've been not putting about like I don't want to keep doing the evolution. It's like it's interesting how each place, province tries to improve acceptable. That's all. Catherine Causing is there.
No, I work with Lindsay.
I don't know. Catherine's the head of their. I'm gonna probably collection. She's well, powerful, smart, really quite very well. But you got a new guy who's dealing with brand. You got someone above. But I see those phenomenally more process you have to separate the maybe that's because of lack of investment in infrastructure. It's not
We have heard from, like, everybody's. I'm pretty sure that everybody has sat here before too. I think going out. Just
in front. When we started the program,
Right.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So Emily, I'm not used to using Teams as opposed to Zoom, but the question and answer, all the questions are. Over there.
I'm not sure. That would not be a Tatiana question.
Where? I had a guy from I used to sort of laugh. I said, yeah, you were what you know. So I want to know whether the damage. But I've done yesterday was a cheat. I put them walking out the lake. I know, I agree. You guys got that? See, I've got a son in Australia who's flying out to Vernon next week. That'll do. Traveling.
Answer your question. Province, I want 2 states.
Yeah.
Welcome to our fourth and third final conversation. Topic tonight is waves. Yes. I think the noise that seems to settle a bit. Can everybody hear me now? Yeah. Welcome to the fourth in the series of climate conversations on my climate momentum. The topic tonight is waves. I'm going to have a good program for you. Some people would think by the topic it doesn't sound very interesting, but it's a certainly very serious problem that we have. Before I introduce the speaker, though, I'd like to call up Felicity Sutcliffe to give the acknowledgements, the land acknowledgements.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Felicity, and I'm a member of Mancham. Stratford is located on land that was shared between the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We are on territory governed by the District 1 Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant made between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. This land is home to many Indigenous people. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play here. Today, I was thinking about the waste that would have been created by the Indigenous people that first lived on this land. And I thought about the fact that it would have just all been compost because it came from the land and the animals and the fish. So essentially, it was a completely no waste lifestyle. And it has become more and more and more wasteful every decade since the first settlers arrived here. So I was thinking about how the question is for us today, can we possibly find ways to go back to less waste each year so that we could be reversing this trend that has become unmanageable, basically. Okay, so I'm going to give you just a few seconds to think about that. And next, we have Dawn's introducing the speaker, sorry.
By the way, Doug Thompson, I'm a member of the committee, and also represent Rotary here tonight, helps to sponsor this series of programs. So, as Felicity indicated, waste is a real problem. You know, it builds and builds year after year. Our landfills are getting filled up, and I was surprised to hear that we're one of the most wasteful countries in the world, actually, in human in waste, and even 30% of what we put in our food boxes ends up in landfill. It's unfortunate. You know, if we're going to strive for a sustainable economy and for a circular economy, we have to subtract as much as we add to the waste problem in our country. And the speaker tonight is going to help us wade through that because there have been some recent changes. Our speaker is Emily Skelding. She was born and raised on a generational farm inside of Stratford. She's been working for the city of Stratford since 2023. And before that, she was she worked in private waste industry, which turned green bin and yard waste into high quality. Thank you. High quality compost. So Emily Skelding is the supervisor of waste operations for the city of Stratford. And she's going to tell us how we're going to reach or try to reach zero waste. Emily?
Thanks, Doug, for that warm introduction, and thank you to Sheila and the rest of the team that organized these climate conversations. Something I didn't give Doug an introduction is that I actually have 2 little girls. So waste is very important to me, but climate is also extremely important to me, not just for myself, but for my 2 little girls that are going to be growing up in this environment that we're living in.
Okay, everybody is here, okay, for my view.
I think we need to fix it here. It was great that Tatiana and Alex agreed to help us tonight. for the technology part of tonight. Okay, so, what am I going to speak with you about tonight? So on the agenda, I want to introduce you, to our curbside waste, composition. So we're gonna look at, curbside garbage collection, how much is collected, where it goes. Leaf and yard waste collection, green bin and blue box likewise, how much of that is collected, where it goes. I'm gonna spend a couple extra slides on the blue box program because there's some big changes happening there, in January of 2026. And, at the very end, we're gonna talk about, waste reduction and, greenhouse gas, the goals that were set in the community climate action plan, and maybe some ideas on ways that we can reduce that. My goal tonight is to set some foundations for laying out what our waste composition is and help spotlight some of the areas that we can improve, identify the low-hanging fruit for the greenhouse gas reductions. Okay, so just a reminder, the Community Climate Action Plan that was approved through council in August of 2024 identified that 12% of the total greenhouse gas emissions here in Stratford were from waste. And although that might not be as many as some of the other categories, it's not insignificant. And there's definitely some changes that we can make there to reduce that number. Okay, so our curbside waste collection program. So we've got 4 waste streams that we put on the curbside. So we have garbage, leaf and yard waste, green bin, and blue box. And this is what the annual composition of all of that looks like. So for garbage, we've got about 45% of what we put on the curbside is garbage. 29% is blue box, 14% is green bin, and 12% is yard waste. This is our 2023 data. But it changes very slightly year by year on how much actually gets put onto the curbside. To put some other numbers to that, for everything that goes on the curbside in a year, we're looking at about 7,000 metric tons of material overall. So if it was elephants, it would be 1,200 elephants. If you're a farm girl like me and you think about combines, it'd be about 780 combines of waste that gets put onto the curbside. So diving right into garbage, this slide's a little bit overwhelming. On the right-hand side here though, that is just the page. It's just a screenshot of the page of our waste collection calendar. I brought some that are over the coffee and tea station at the back there. But our garbage is collected here weekly in Stratford. And I do have lots of conversations with residents about our user pay system or our bag tag program here in Stratford. And one of the elements of that program that I do talk to residents about is one of the benefits, which is that the less waste you put on the curb, the less you're going to pay for bag tags. So it does incentivize residents to reduce the amount of waste they're making, but also to use their green bins and their blue boxes as well. This makes up about 45% of our overall waste that goes onto the curbside. And to put some numbers to that as well, that's about 3,200 metric tons of garbage that's put on just the curb in the city of Stratford every year. Our waste collection contractor makes about 15,000 stops a week in town to collect all the materials, but the garbage there. Okay, so where does it go? This is our City of Stratford landfill. This is the entrance. I like to look at our landfill in 2 different sections. So we have the front of the landfill. That's what we have here. This is the Romeo entrance here. And the front of the landfill is mostly where we have our residential drop-off, but that's also where a lot of our diversion programs are located. And then the back of the landfill, and I have a slide on that, that's where our active landfilling goes. That's where the garbage from the curbside would go. But just to give you a little introduction into the front of the landfill here. So we do have 4 staff. We have a scale house attendant and a spotter. So the spotter's job is to remove any of the contamination from the bins. For example, if someone puts a propane bin in or a propane tank in our recycling bin, he would retrieve that and then store it so that we could put it in the right waste stream, which would be our house with hazardous waste bin. And then we also have a compactor operator and a heavy machine operator, and those two employees work at the back of the landfill, working on the active landfill phase. And I just wanted to take a minute here to kind of point out some of the diversion programs that we have at the landfill. So we have our recycling depot, which is located right here. A cardboard bin, which is here, and it's a large bin because a lot of businesses have large pieces of cardboard that just simply wouldn't make sense to put in these smaller bins here. We need a larger bin that we're able to kind of bang down and take as much cardboard as possible. E-waste, so our electronic waste is right beside the recycling bins. We take household batteries at the scale house, and then we use a third party to help us recycle those. We do textile recycling, so we partner with Diabetes Canada. There's the textile bins here. Leaf and yard waste, so this is the leaf and yard waste drop-off area, and these are our active composting windrows, which I'll talk about in a couple slides. We also have brush and Christmas tree drop-off, metal drop-off bin. We take roof shingles and recycle them, and then we also divert bricks and asphalt and concrete from the landfill. And then finally, for specified days of the year, we have hazardous waste. Okay, so this is our landfill. This is our engineered landfill cell 3B, we call it. So our landfill is quite old. It was first started being landfilled in the 1950s, in the early 1950s. We have about 20 years left of capacity left in our landfill. So our current landfill cells, so this is, I'll kind of outline it here. This is the current landfill cell 3B. So it's a modern engineered landfill. And what that means is that it has a reinforced clay liner on the bottom here. And the clay and the grade is all graded down to our pump house to collect leachate. We also have pipes and fingers in the bottom of the landfill cell that collect leachate, which gets pumped out and put into the sanitary line and treated at the city sanitary system. Once this landfill cell is filled, we collect the methane. So for landfills, what happens to the waste when it goes in there is kind of the active landfilling phase is right here. So the trucks during these weeks would have been unloading here, and then the packer operator would have been compacting down in here. And the material and the waste that goes into the landfill still breaks down, but because of that compaction, it's in an anaerobic or a lack of oxygen environment. So it breaks down very, very slowly. For organics, so your regular household organics, wood waste, etc., that breaks down. If it's in an anaerobic environment, it creates methane. So that methane in the landfill is captured once the cap is on. So this is landfill cell 3A. This would have been what we were using the landfill prior to September of 2023. And we'll put horizontal methane wells into the cell. And then we pump that methane to our methane stack here, and it's burned, it's flared. And the idea there is that it's flared so that it creates carbon dioxide, which is a less potent greenhouse gas than methane. I should add that as an anaerobic process, and we do collect the methane coming out of the landfill, because it is a landfill, we will not have 100% methane capture from a landfill cell. Okay, so that's for garbage, curbside garbage. How much do we collect? Where does it go? The next is yard waste. So we collect yard waste from the curbside here in Stratford. Once a month between the months of April and September. And then we also collect it weekly from mid-October to the end of November. And that's to capture the leaf season. So we've got lots of leaves falling down in the fall there. We'll collect weekly yard waste every week. We have 1 week of Christmas tree pickup in January. And then that material will come to the landfill for active composting. So this is about 12% of the overall weight that gets put onto the curbside every year. And when that material comes to the landfill, unlike the landfill cell and garbage that gets put into an anaerobic or lack of oxygen environment, For composting, it is the opposite. It needs lots of oxygen. So what we'll do is when this material comes, we'll grind it and then we'll actually take a front end loader and we'll turn it. So, maybe once a week, while it's really hot, we'll turn it, introduce that oxygen. That process takes anywhere from 8 months to a year. Once that's finished, it gets tested and then we make the compost available, for residents once it's passed. And you can get up to 1 cubic foot of compost that you can take home from your gardens. I guess I'll just plug here, we have a lot of compost left over from last year. So for those of you who are interested in compost in the spring, we have lots right now. Okay, next we have the green bin program. So the green bin program is collected weekly in the city. It's available to all residents in single dwelling and multi-residential buildings. Something very unique to Stratford and that I'm quite proud of is that the green bin program is also available for the ICI sector. So it's also available for businesses, schools, other institutions and industrial partners to join in on. It makes up about 14% of the amount of material that goes onto the curbside. And this program was introduced in 2020. We did see when that program came in that we got more than 1,000 metric tons. Likewise, in 2021, we had over 1,000 metric tons a year going to that program. And we have started seeing those numbers fall since 2021. Any ideas or feedback as to why the green bin program might be seeing less organics in 2024 than in 2020 and 2021?
And Devin, people were moving.
Yeah. So we've discussed this as a team, and there's two things. Once when you launch the program, you're doing a lot of P&Es, so people are very aware, they're excited about the program. But also, what we thought was a likely culprit was that those who were at home using their green bins a lot because they were working from home returned to work 2022 onwards, and so we saw that drop in the green bin program. So we still see about 1,000 metric tons, but not quite as much as we were seeing in 2020 and 2021. So for the green bin material, it's collected on the curbside and it goes to Storm Fisher, which is just outside of London, Ontario. This is an aerial shot of Storm Fisher here. And this is a very simplified graphic of the anaerobic digestion process. So similar to the waste in the landfill, the material breaks down in a lack of oxygen, so anaerobic process. However, this process is closed loop. So you're not getting the methane escaping from the process. And I'm just gonna really quickly kind of walk you through how that looks. So the green bin is collected on the curbside. It arrives at the facility and it's depackaged and it's pre-treated. It goes into the anaerobic digester, and there are microbes in there that readily break down the organic material that's getting fed in there. And there's two byproducts, two beneficial byproducts that come out of this process. So one, as they're breaking down the organic materials, gas is created. That gas is then powered over to a generator, which is used to make electricity. So Storm Fisher, where our green bin material goes, they make renewable natural gas, and that gets fed into the grid. The secondary byproduct of this process, so the gas kind of comes up to the top and gets collected there. The solids, while the microbes are breaking it down, fall to the bottom of the digester, and then those get scraped off and moved over to a digestate storage tank. This is a picture of the digestate. I apologize, it's really hard to see. It probably just looks like a black square. But the material is kind of like this spongy. So if you could picture like a really, really wet soil is what it looks like, but it's very nutrient rich. That material gets spread on fields is its destination. Okay, next we have the Blue Box program. This makes up about 29% of everything that goes on the curbside. It's collected weekly and it's available to residents as well as businesses and institutions here in town. The biggest part of the Blue Box program, which you missed and an extra slide or two on tonight, is that we do know our Blue Box program is changing. And so I just wanted to give you a very brief introduction to the new producer responsibility program. And this is province-wide. This isn't just for the city of Stratford. So what is producer responsibility? So producer responsibility is a regulatory approach to waste management where producers are responsible for the waste generated from their products and their packaging. So if you're Coca-Cola, you're now responsible for the cradle and the grade of your product. So you produce the Coke bottle for your product to go into, you put it into the marketplace, and now you're responsible for the end life of that bottle. The intention of the program is to help spark innovation. So if you're responsible for the grade of that product, you're more likely to design it with recyclability in mind, maybe higher quality plastic, for example, that has more likelihood to get recycled into a new product at the tail end. We're also not the only province in Canada that are doing this. So BC has a EPR program. So in Ontario, prior to this new program, which is going to be coming in 2026, producers funded it 50%. So municipalities were responsible for organizing it, providing the education for it, sending it to the producers, and funding it to a certain degree, 50%. And come 2026, it's going to be 100% over to the producers. So I have a couple of slides that'll kind of show that there. Yeah. So again, this is kind of a shared industry funding. So you have the local government that was kind of responsible for organizing the trucks and educating the public, taking it to the recycling facility, and then funding half of it and getting some money back from the producers. How our new EPR program, it's going to be 100% producer one. So prior to our transition, it was a shared, so municipalities looked after kind of single dwelling homes, multi-residential homes, and we often typically included schools, businesses, long-term care homes, etc. The new regulation for 2026 onwards is specific for single family homes, multi-residential homes, public and high school level schools, specified retirement and long-term care homes, and specified public spaces. So what that means is that it doesn't include businesses, it doesn't include places of worship, it doesn't include for-profit long-term care, and it doesn't include municipal buildings such as City Hall or buildings such as the public library. Prior to transition, if you were in Stratford and you had a set Blue Box program, you could go to St. Mary's or Mitchell or Toronto, and they could accept completely different things into their Blue Box program. This is one of the things that I'm very excited for the transition, is that it's going to be a standardized program. So whatever is accepted in the program here is also accepted in Toronto, in St. Mary's, in Mitchell, etc. A few years ago, Blue Water did something, in my opinion, that was good, which is that they looked at what they were taking at their facility and they said, we are going to target and remove the items that don't have good end markets for them. So certain things were taken out of our program. So I would say, given that, I don't see anything being taken out of what we currently put into our Blue Box program here in Stratford. If anything, I would see things being added back in. So cartons, Tetra Packs, smaller tins, those things that we don't accept right now, I would foresee those coming back in. We're still waiting for that final confirmed list from the producer. Okay, so what we know. So if you are a resident here in Stratford, you own a home, you're going to continue to get your Blue Box service, likely bi-weekly, but they haven't confirmed that with us yet either. We also know that municipalities and taxpayers are no longer responsible for funding this program. This is an exciting one that we have recently been told, but Blue Water Recycling was the awarded collection contractor. So what that means for residents here in Stratford is that we're going to be moving to the blue wheelie bins for January of 2026. So we'll get those blue carts for our recycling. So what's still to be determined? Council made a decision about, our last council, that confirmed they were gonna continue to pick up the business Blue Box for a period between January of 2026, when we transition, until November of 2026. That period is because come November of 2026, we are gonna be relooking at our waste collection contract in general, so for the other streams, such as garbage and green bin and yard waste. So it's a good opportunity to reevaluate if that's gonna be included or not included in the program at that time. Our convenience depot at the landfill, so the regulations for the producers say that if the residents are serviced on the curbside, that it's not a requirement to have a depot offered for them. The city has put in an application requesting that we have a depot continue at our landfill. We should find out about at the end of the month, whether or not we're gonna get our convenience depot. We had kind of talked about this. There is gonna be some changes to what's included and not included in the program. Again, if anything, I think we'll see things added back in. So Tetra Packs, cartons, et cetera. And then the public education and communication piece, so that is still pending. We have our waste collection calendar, we have our Recycle Coach app that we use, that blends all of our different waste categories together. So we are still working out if we are gonna be working with the producers, that they will continue, having a page in our calendar, or if they're gonna have something completely separate. Okay, so those were the 4 streams of waste that we have here in the city of Stratford. So we have our garbage, our yard waste, our green bin, and our Blue Box. So I wanted to circle back to this idea of, okay, how do we reduce, or what are some ways that we can reduce our emissions in each of those streams? So the first one, and I think the most obvious one, is reducing the overall garbage that we put out. So there's a few things that we can do there as far as educating people, encouraging waste reduction. We do have bag tags here in the city of Stratford. Something that may be worth considering is how bi-weekly garbage collection could or could not impact people's behavior for garbage generation. Next, we have yard waste. So yard waste is a program that does create a beneficial product. It comes to landfill. We make some high quality double-A compost out of it. However, we do have to use front-end loaders to process that material, and it does release carbon dioxide. So what are some options for residents who live in Stratford there? The idea of grass recycling. So grass in particular is high in nitrogen, which is one of the elements that creates methane. So leaving your grass on your lawn after you cut, help recycle that nitrogen right back into your yard. Likewise, in the fall, mulching your leaves, so if possible, maybe that kind of last stage of the trees, like losing their leaves, you either leave it on your lawn or you cut the grass and you mulch it right on your lawn. Not only does that mean less pickups and then therefore less heavy equipment moving that material around, but it's also really good for the bugs in your yard too. I wanted to really highlight the green bin and increasing the green bin use here. I put this right out of the Community Climate Action Plan. So for every 10 metric tons that we can divert out of the garbage stream and put into our green bin, we would be reducing our greenhouse gases by 4,500 tons of carbon equivalent. To put in other words, for every 10 metric tons that we reduce is 1% off of our greenhouse gas emissions in the city. So there are lots of opportunities in this category, especially to try to get multi-residential businesses and some institutions on board with the green bin program. And then finally, for Blue Box, one of the kind of more thought-provoking things I would say for this group would be, as much as it's not going to be in our hands for the residential Blue Box program, as a council and as a community, we are going to have to decide on what we're going to do with the non-eligible or the business Blue Box. So how we're going to support businesses to continue to recycle their Blue Box material, whether that is including them in our collection program or providing support so that they can work together in collecting and diverting that from the landfill too. Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to plug that we do have a survey out right now with the city of Stratford on Engage Stratford for curbside waste collection. I also want to leave you with a quote from Annie Leonard, who said, "There's no such thing as away. When we throw away, it must go somewhere." So thank you, and if there's any questions. Over to you.
Just a question about the methane of the landfill. Appreciate the point you made about, flaring it turns it into carbon dioxide, which is less impactful than methane. Can you comment on, are there any other options as far as capturing that heat for some purpose, or can it be burned somewhere else in a more productive way rather than just flaring it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, absolutely, you can collect the methane, and similar to what the anaerobic digesters do, you can harness it and like, say, generate a generator, which creates electricity for the grid. You do need a certain amount of methane produced at your landfill though, and a steady amount of that methane in order for that to happen. So we do see some really large landfills in Ontario that are able to make a renewable natural gas program off of their methane. It's not something that I, in my role here at the city, have explored for our methane capture system. So we would have to first start off and see if we had enough methane produced at that landfill for that as an option. But yeah, there's definitely other options in this flaring.
The green bin stuff that goes to the place in London and goes back to the grid, who benefits from that? Like who gets that electricity?
To my understanding, it goes into the grid, like the general grid in Ontario. So, I would have to look into like specifically, I don't know the grid system as well as maybe here would, but, I would assume that it would be like part of the general grid that everybody has access to.
Okay. And someone benefits when someone has solar panels here and they generate electricity, they get that back from the grid. So, and
Yeah, if I could comment on that quickly. The organics recycling facilities in Ontario are for the most part private. There are some municipal ones. But I would suggest that maybe one avenue would be that it would allow them, if they were getting money for that, to have a more competitive price that they would put out to municipalities in comparison to others that aren't feeding into the grid and getting that money.
okay, one more question, the cloth waste, where do we put that?
Sorry, the which?
The cloth
Like
waste,
textiles?
the textiles?
Yeah, so at the bin at the landfill, we partner with Diabetes Canada. And so they have a partnership with local charities here and recycling facilities here in Stratford, where they first upcycle the materials. So if there are things that can be captured for resale, it goes first. But otherwise, it starts moving its way downstream. So for example, the sheets can be torn and used as stuffing.
So that Diabetes Canada does that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there an accounting of that? Oh, sorry.
What's going to happen to our blue bins when the blue poly roll-up things come in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are going to likely recommend that residents use them as storage containers. They do not have a recycling avenue at this point. Like there's, they are not accepted at recycling facilities that specialize mostly in food packaging. So Yeah, that's something that we'll be working on over the next year on what we're gonna do with the recycling totes, but one of our recommendations will be for residents to use them as like a.
It's my understanding that you said that the producer responsibility does not extend to businesses and industries. Can you tell me why that is?
Like closer to your mouth.
Oh, sorry. It's my understanding that the producer responsibility does not extend to business and industries. Can you tell me why that is?
As simply as I can, is because it's not in the regulations. So it wasn't included in what they were required to collect from this responsibility.
I just wanted to, on your question over there about the green, the compost, you said it goes on fields, like whose fields does it go on? Is that again something that people buy? Is it free? Is it up for grabs for everybody? And my other question is, with garbage, do we want organics in the garbage or we don't want to create the methane? Like, I'm confused with that.
Yeah, so for your first question, the digestate from the facility that we send it to goes through a NASM plan, so it's only for agricultural use. As far as if it's paid for or if it's given away, that would be a question I would have to reach out to Stormfisher and see if they were willing to share that with us. And then as far as the methane goes, I would argue, my opinion, that putting the material in the green bin is when you're giving it to a facility that's recycling it and making energy as one byproduct, beneficial byproduct, as well as making a soil amendment like a digestate product. That is more beneficial than putting that in the landfill with the methane and capturing it and flaring it. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Hi, I'm new to Stratford. I came from a community where we had to sort recycling. I'm not sure if I have to sort it here, whether I can throw it all into the recycle bin. And if I don't sort it here, why not? Like, does that not save a step along the way? Thanks.
Yeah, so it depends on where it goes, like which recycling facility it goes to. It's single stream here in Stratford. From what we've heard, that's what the program will likely transition to in January 2026 as well, single stream, but that's not to say that it won't separate into paper is a typical stream and then other recyclables in the other bin, so.
So I can stop.
I understand. I'm curious, if Blue Water like studied, the market and didn't find, valuable end product for Tetra Paks, how did the province come up with including that on their new system?
Part of that can be their access to those markets. So, that would be part of the reason. And then, for some of the materials that they didn't accept in their program, could have also been due to technologies as well. But,
I was just gonna ask a question about the clothing. And we all know there's a lot of nasty stuff that goes on with clothing and it sort of disappears and winds up in India or something. I was wondering if there's some sort of accounting of where it actually goes.
yeah, so we recently have followed up with the Diabetes Foundation. They send us reports every month on the amount of kilograms that gets diverted. There is inevitably with any diversion program, there is residual waste. So there is a certain amount of like soiled material that can't be recycled. There is tracking of the products through that though. So the partnerships that they make keep track of the tonnage of that.
Maybe have a couple more questions and then,
Go there.
So I was just thinking about composting and digesting. So I have both at home. Am I saving the city money so they don't have to pay to have it collected and I get the benefit from it. That not better? Should we not be promoting that, I guess?
Yeah, I would say one challenge, with, if we were to move to only say household composters, or backyard composters, is that we do have residents who live in buildings that don't have backyards or don't have the means to, compost on their property. So people who are living in multi-residential buildings, for example, who can participate in the green program wouldn't be able to. There. Now, the program is rolled out for the city and those, trucks are coming down the streets collecting.
But it does help us what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
If we do
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
I try to put stuff on the same piece of property. And the other thing is the new blue wheelie things. Are they making them so they're recyclable? Like that kind of funny that it's like recycling, but it's not recyclable, it's not.
Yeah, so my understanding wasn't as much about the wheelie cart, but the current blue boxes that we have.
No, but will they be doing that for the others, is what I'm getting at?
I would hope so. Like, we're not the only municipality that's gonna have this, challenge when they transition.
I guess
away
it's a
from-
suggestion.
We just have one more question.
Emily, were you saying that the plan is to move to bi-weekly garbage collection? Because it seems to me that would make sense. I mean, we've got all these other diversion programs that they get better. And I would assume there'd be significant savings if you're doing every other week garbage. Is that at least, are you planning it as part of a tender?
So the station, so there's no plans at this time for that. That would be a council decision because it would be a change in service for what residents are currently experiencing. But through our survey, one of the categories looks at waste, and in that category, it does ask for frequency. So we're trying to gauge right now from residents if the current weekly frequency is enough for them, or if they'd like to see it moved to bi-weekly. But certainly that's an approach that some other municipalities have taken, moving their garbage collection to bi-weekly to promote more participation in the green bin and the blue box. Thank you very much.
One is, somebody, mentioned that, in their townhouse complex, there's they pay for the contract to pick up garbage. I'm not sure where that is, but is that still existing?
Yeah, so there are residents in Stratford who live on private, like property, private roads. As far as the green bin goes, they can still participate in our green bin program, but we have to still collect it from a public roadway. So they would bring their green bin out to the roadside.
There wouldn't be any change in that situation.
No, that's been the case since the rollout of the program. Oh, you mean, sorry, for the blue box program? Yeah, so they would be captured in the new blue box program, but their condo board, if they're not participating in the city program right now, would have to organize that directly with the public.
It's hard to say thank you enough. That was such a broad topic. I think we all learned something. She came in tonight when we were setting that earlier today in her orange work coat with the flashing things on it and orange suit and she also takes care of the landfill and all the digestion and all of the waste processes. It's a huge job and we're very, very grateful for what you do. It was music to my ears to hear you talk about the grass cuttings and the leaves. I'll just add, as an ecologist, that there are many, many butterflies and moths and helping insects that lay their eggs in your leaves. So when you hear leave the leaves, you're supporting the environment. And that's wonderful, a wonderful idea.
Now, we have three display tables at the back, 3 displays, and they're all worth going to. I would like to, give each of the displays 5 minutes to tell you about their display. And then while we have break, you will have time to enjoy the food from the new owners of Rebel, and the coffee and the tea, and going to the displays. And then please return to your table for the conversation part. So we'll start with, since we're over here, with Claire. And you will certainly understand why.
Well, I have my assistant. Tech getting I just have some photos because I feel like that's a better way to show off what I do. And that was a great presentation. And yeah, thank you for the work that you do. You're really good at speaking. I do. Yeah, let's wait. Oh, do I have a clicking thing?
Yeah, that's it, right?
Well, while this is getting set up and the homepage is on, that's the start. So yeah, I am Claire and I run an eco fashion brand, Claire Upcycled, where we put fashion and style where it belongs, back on the people and out of the landfill. Do I just press the arrow? Yes. You go over, cool. Sweet. Yeah, so right now, while we're at this event, over 10,000 articles of clothing are being dumped in a landfill somewhere in the world. And that's what activated me into starting this business. So Claire Upcycled is a sustainable eco-fashion, gender-neutral streetwear brand. And what I do is I take my original artwork designs and I screen print them on scrap fabric, textile waste for some. And I sew my designs on thoughtfully curated secondhand clothing, creating one-of-one wearable art. So this is just, I just thought photos are a great way to show the process. Everything from the designing to the screen printing is all the things that I do to go into the process. And there's a lot of scrap material that goes into creating the clothing, but a lot of the shirts that I strip and cut up to make my designs on are shirts that are being donated to me from people all over the place that have holes or stains or would otherwise be considered trash. So I take those shirts and I cut them up and I screen print my designs on. And even the smallest bit of scraps, that's what I use for labels and other parts to go into upcycling the garments. And I do have a rack at the back with just a few examples of the clothing, just to show you my process. And I just wanted to ask this room, how many tons of textile waste do you think goes into the landfills every single year? Does anyone know the answer to that? Just shout a number out, somebody. 3 billion. That's, one day it might be there, yikes. The number is 92 million tons of textile waste goes into the landfills around the globe every single year. Yikes. And obviously a huge result in that is because of buying fast fashion and
big brand names, I know you know them, are producing clothing every single day and putting it in stores, online, every single day, and we are consumers buying these textiles. So I'll keep this really short. I know I'm supposed to keep this really short, but I'll just give you a quick summary as to how I got into this business. And I've been entrepreneuring since I was about 16 years old, and I'm an artist full time, and I wanted a way to put my art on clothing and get it out in the world in different ways. And so I did start my brand originally through a fast fashion avenue because I wasn't educated about the fashion industry. And so I was just printing my designs on clothing and getting clothes shipped from wherever, China, Bangladesh, the cheapest prices I could get, because again, I was an uneducated young person. And as soon as I started to get a little bit more educated about what was going on in the fashion industry, I decided I knew these truths and I needed to do something about this. So I completely stopped that business after 6 years of generating success and getting a name out there. I changed the whole brand and learned how to sew, learned how to screen print, and started taking what people would consider trash and upcycling that into the clothes that I'm wearing today. And since starting this project in this avenue in 2020, myself and the odd person who's willing to come and help me, we've given life to over 2,000 articles of clothing. So more to come. And it's been an amazing journey, and just being able to get my work out there and being seen that it is art and it still has a lot of value, but it is a way to totally create something out of what already exists on this planet. And I was lucky enough to get a segment last year on breakfast television showing off my brand about eco-fashion and gender-neutral clothing. So that was for me a big win. And I just wanted to give some plugs to things that are coming up if people are unsure how to maybe start getting more eco with their fashion. Obviously, we know that there's thrift stores here in Stratford, and I'll just say that I am partnered with the Goodwill because the Goodwill is a non-for-profit business. So no matter where you shop thrift, it's a good idea. Doesn't matter if it's Value Village in that sense, as long as you are investing in secondhand clothing and investing in the cyclical economy of fashion. But I would say that Goodwill is the first place you should go. And if you don't find anything there, then hit up independent thrift stores and then Value Village. Value Village is also owned by America and is for profit. I'll just say that. Things that are just coming up is Traction Week, and that's an amazing event hosted here in Stratford that is all about promoting eco-fashion and super creative ways to take trash and literally make outfits, as well as taking existing textiles and making fabulous upscale clothing. And that there's a charity shop running out of the Yoga Collective twice a month. It's on the 3rd floor, and they're donating 50 to 70% of those proceeds to organizations like the Emily Murphy Center and the local community food center, and they are accepting donations. So if anyone's interested in that, follow the Yoga Collective or the Yoga Chapel on Instagram. And yeah, I would just say a few more things because we don't want to be doom and gloom, but main skills for me that just helped me get a little bit more excited about being a part of the eco-fashion industry was learning how to mend. And I know that there's so many people in this room who have used a sewing machine, but learning how to mend and getting together with friends and talking about the things that they wear that they no longer want, and looking for people to pass those things on to first before just dumping off bags and bags at the thrift store, because that's a whole other avenue. But anyway, I think I covered it all. I don't really want to talk for that long, but you can follow me on Instagram, and my website's there, and you can come chat with me about more of that at the back. I hope that wasn't too long.
Spellbound. I'm so glad you're here. I've seen those pictures, and I'm sure you have, of piles and piles of clothes in third world countries. And an awful lot of them are polyester or polyethylene products that cannot be recycled and cannot be absorbed by the soil. This is just wonderful to know that this is happening. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. And we'll move on to a concept that Claire mentioned, and that is recycling in a sense. Jane Marie, would you like to talk about the swap table?
Thank you. So I thought when we were talking about waste, it would be a good time to talk about not putting things in the waste and being able to swap them out for something else. Somebody put this at the table, and it's a current year calendar with beautiful pictures of Ontario. So it'll be back there if someone wants to take it home with them. But to me, it's a sustainable way to live. And why put it in the garbage or the dump if it has use still? So take a minute and look and see what's there, and maybe take something home with you. Thanks.
Raise your hand if you've been to a second-hand or a reused clothing store. Isn't that something new that's happening? That's wonderful. Finally, I belong to, I'm Sheila Clark, by the way. I belong to Climate Momentum, and I also belong to CFUW, which is the Canadian Federation of University Women. We have a climate action committee, and we've been covering all sorts of things that have to do with climate, from idling to sustainable shopping. One of our projects dealt with plastic, which does not biodegrade, as I'm sure you know. In fact, everyone sitting here has microplastics in your brain. They're that prevalent. They're in water, they're in plants, they're in animals, and they're in us. So we started a project to give alternatives to plastic. And Sue, would you like to tell a little bit about that? That's where that beautiful sun is that we have taken as our mantra.
Hello, I'm Sue Bailey. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm one of the members of the CFUW Climate Advocacy Group, and we have several members. Sheila, Mary Lou is here, Patsy is here, there might be some others. And we're very pleased tonight to have brought you our table at the back for plastic-free shopping. So I hope you'll have a look and see some of the alternatives to plastics that you can use. For instance, to go along the idea of sewing is to make your own bags out of your reusable bags out of old shirts. Maybe a well-loved shirt that, you know, it's frayed, you can't use it, but you can use parts of it to make a bag. Mary Lou has her Swiffer in the back, and she has made covers for the Swiffers, for her Swiffer, so that you no longer have to use the plasticized parts, and you can just use an old rag made to cover the Swiffer. We have so many ideas, but just to say, why don't we use plastic? Why don't we want to use plastic? It is an oil product. It creates carbon and methane emissions. In terms of plastic recycling, only about 9% of the plastic in the world gets properly or efficiently recycled. And we hear cases of all over the world. For instance, I listened to a webinar not long ago about in one of the countries in Africa where plastic is clogging their drains and it's creating flooding. You know, all over the world, plastic is covering fruit, and in Spain, there was a campaign to undress the fruit. And you know, why do you have to have plastic covering fruit when you can bring your own bags? You can use paper bags for mushrooms and other things like that. So at the back table, please do have a look. And if you would like to know more about what we do, on our website, you just have to search for CFUW Stratford, and you will find our whole list of everything pretty much that we've done, including our most recent publication, which is the, what's it called here? The Sustainable Shopping Cart. And under that, you will find a whole section on plastics and alternatives to plastic. So thank you. Please,
Thank you, Sue. So now it's break time, and you know the drill. You can enjoy the treats, as I said, from Rebel, and please do browse the exhibits. We'll have a somewhat shorter discussion time today, but I want to give you time to browse. And then I'll call you back to the tables, and you will find things on the tables for your entertainment. Thank you.
Someone knocked it. Oh, no. That's okay.